It's painful as hell to live in the greatest country on the face of the earth and watch these Lilliputians destroy it. It's painful as hell to live in the greatest country on the face of the earth and watch these cockroaches roaming the planet as if they're 10 feet tall. These throwbacks. People used to call them throwbacks to the 9th century. I corrected them years ago. No, it's not the 9th century. It's the 7th century. It's amazing how many other hosts listen to this program and write down what I say. They can't help themselves. But I don't do this show for them. I do this show for you. That's right, these cockroaches who are roaming the planet in pickup trucks with machine guns. Under a different government, under a different president, under a different Secretary of Defense, they could be dealt with properly. And I'm not talking about George W. Bush either. We want victory. We can have victory. We've been propagandized and brainwashed into believing we can't win these wars. Of course we can win these wars. That doesn't mean every one of these little pieces of crap are going to be destroyed. They'll always be hiding under their rocks and slithering around and so forth and so on. It's not the point. There is no reason the capital of this so-called caliphate in Syria still exists. Period. And you'll hear, well, you can't hit the citizens. You can't. 500,000 Syrian citizens have been slaughtered. This is what I don't understand. Why is it that we've understood this for our entire history up to this point, right now? That in order to save more people, you need to put an end to these kinds of events, wars. But no. We're going to democratize, and we're going to draft leaflets, and we certainly don't want to offend. Isn't it amazing? Is there ever a discussion by these political hacks in Washington, starting at the top, about who's offending us? Who's offending us? I'm offended by this group CARE, an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm offended by the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm offended by anyone who comes into this country from anywhere and refuses to assimilate. I'm offended by people who come into this country and carry the flag of a foreign nation around and burn the American flag. I'm offended by liberals who attack our Constitution, undermine our national security, and undermine the safety in our neighborhoods. Well, you're just angry. We're offended. You're angry. No. We don't want people to think they're put upon. Excuse me? We are such suckers. We really are. We are the backbone of this nation. This is our nation. This country belongs to us. It doesn't belong to the rest of the world. It doesn't belong to everybody who wishes to come here. It doesn't belong to the UN. It doesn't belong to any of them. It belongs to you and me. This country does not belong to the Senate. It does not belong to the House. It does not belong to the Supreme Court or any court. This country certainly does not belong to Barack Obama. It does not belong to any political party. This is our country, damn it. And they're debating whether we're going to be able to retain certain unalienable rights? Excuse me? We're attacked by the enemy, and they're debating whether we get to retain our unalienable rights? Our so-called representatives? And this media. What a joke. Where is it written that the Second Amendment's up for grabs, but freedom of the press isn't? Can somebody point that out to me, where freedom of the press is more important than the Second Amendment? All these amendments were crucial. They were all ratified at the same time. Now, will somebody tell me, please, why freedom of the press is a priority over the Second Amendment? You see, ladies and gentlemen, all these amendments work together. They're part of the same whole. It's not a puzzle. Hey, this one matters, this one, that. No. It's not pick and choose. It is. They are. And yet because the trajectory of this country is left, and more left, we pick and choose. Religious liberty. I'm going to be very blunt about this. And I speak as a Jew. Religious liberty in this country is used more to protect Muslims than it is Christians. Do you agree with that, Mr. Producer? If a Muslim baker didn't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding, do you think there would be any national debate over that? The leftists who set up the different bakers, they don't dare go into a Muslim bakery and do what they do to, say, an evangelical Christian. They wouldn't even think about it. I'm just analyzing this. Not even taking sides. I'm just stepping back and looking at it. We have organizations in this country run by individuals who, in some cases, speak broken English. That is, they're immigrants who make demands on this country, like this front group care. The real conservative media, not the pretend conservative media, really dig into this organization. We know what it is. It's a radical left, dangerous operation. It's a mouthpiece for fundamentalist Islam. It's what it is. They are a front group that seeks to impose Sharia law in this country, as do some of the other front groups. And they're advising our FBI at the behest of the president and the various attorneys general, the two of them, on what they can say and they can do. Got people speaking broken English who just came into this country 20, 30 years ago. Can anybody point to another time in history when something like this has occurred? I can't. Can you? When the FBI is on somebody's trail and the trail runs cold for a little bit, they have to act within 6 months? Excuse me? Oh, yes, yes. 6 months, that's it. Don't use the word Muslim. Don't use the word jihad. Don't use the word terrorism. Don't put it in your file. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. 6 months, that's it. Drop it. Move on. And then the predictable happens. Slaughter. And then the next predictable thing happens. We debate the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment. And this list, everybody on the list should not be allowed to get a gun. Who says? Dianne Feinstein, who's always been very, very concerned about the upholding of the Constitution. Everybody on the list should not buy a gun. After all, we labeled the list the terrorist watch list. So everybody on the list is presumed to be a terrorist. But they're not all don't you believe in safety? Well, there's a lot of things we can do. I've even talked about them all week long. Just putting these lists together and saying, everybody on the list can't buy a gun. Why? Wow. Obama's own guidelines. Listen, please. Obama's own guidelines in 2011 with the 6-month rule that I read to you in the first hour prevented the mass murder in Orlando from being and remaining on the list. And what's he doing this weekend? Golfing, traveling somewhere, campaigning for Hillary, getting ready for Martha's Vineyard, going on one of the late night shows. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but it's amazing. But Monday, we're going to have 4 votes on common sense gun reform. Thank God. Maybe we ought to have 4 votes on 4 pieces of legislation on common sense freedom of the press reform. What are you, a tyrant? What are you, a dictator? Hey! It's funny, these pretend historians, some of them dressed up as liberal tenured professors, talking about the Second Amendment. One genius said, read Federalist 29. That'll tell you what they meant by the Second Amendment. You idiot. There was no Second Amendment when the Federalist Papers were written. Oh, wait a minute. How do we scrub this? And yet I have read what the framers meant at great length. It has nothing to do with what the liberals say.